Hello and welcome to Million Labs. Today we are going to give you a quick overview of the Settings tab.
We will expand on how to actually use some of these features found in this section in later videos. Let's get started. The first tab you will see is the App Plan. As it sounds, this is where you can see your current bubble plan for your app. So if we look down here, we can see which plan we're currently on. If we want to find out about a different plan, we can click on that for more information as well as information related to the cost. If we scroll down the page further, we can see information related to boosting capacity. And if we go to the bottom, we can see information related to paid plugins. Moving to the End tab, we can see versions. If we click on versions, we can see which version of Bubble we are currently on. If we move over to the next tab, we can see Subapps. In the Sub-Applications section, you are allowed to add sub-applications, so essentially apps under apps. This is only available if you are on a professional plan. Next, we have the Collaboration tab. Under the Collaboration tab, you can add or invite collaborators individually to work on your app. This feature is only available on the professional plan. The next tab we have is API. Under the API tab, you can enable external access to your application, meaning other apps can get data from your app. You will also be able to connect back-end workflows. Next, we are going to jump to the Domain or Email tab. The Domain Email tab is where you will add your custom domain, i.e. the domain you have purchased. You will also be able to set up email and certain type of encryption here. So here we can see where you set your domain. Once your domain is set, you will expose and be able to set email settings. And once again your domain is set, you will be able to set up SSL encryption if you so choose. Next to the Domain Email tab, we have the Languages tab. So what's under here? Under the Language tab, you have some optionality to set the language of your application and the system messages your users see. So for instance, right now we can see this application is set to English, and we can see that certain messages like loading, please include an email, etc. are set up. The offering for languages is still quite basic at this time with this feature. You will understand this more when we talk about languages in general. Beside the Languages tab, you can see the SEO or meta tags. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. The first thing you're going to notice is that there's an option for your title, site name, description, and thumbnail for your app. Right now, it's defaulted to bubbles. So you're going to want to change this information. Otherwise, when a search engine is searching your app, it's actually finding bubbles information. Other elements related to setting SEO is in here. We're not going to go further into detail right now, but just know this is where you're going to find your SEO settings. And the last thing we're going to point out is that you do have some option for redirecting, meaning when a user goes to one URL, they can actually be sent to another one, but this is only a feature of a paid plan. The last tab that we're going to talk about is the General tab. The General tab is a catch-all for everything else. So first, it has some settings related to privacy and security, with the first one being application rights. Application rights are who is allowed to see your app and how much of your app are they allowed to see. So in this case, you could set it to private, you could set it so everyone can view it, or that everyone can edit it. You might need to show everyone can edit or everyone can view if you are trying to get help from a forum. The next thing you will see is the ability to add a username and password. So this may be useful in combination with the application rights to ensure that you really are only showing those you want to show. Moving down, you can see there's an option for a favicon. Right now you can see bubbles. What's a favicon, you might ask? Well, if you look up here, you can see an example. It's the little image that shows up in a tab. Favicons can only be used with paid plans. Scrolling through, a couple of other things to point out. So first of all, you'll notice that there's a progress bar color. You can change the color of the progress bar of your application. That is the bar that shows while a person is waiting. Specific to Bubble, Bubble has repeating groups. And because those can be loading a lot of data, they also can have a spinner. You can change the repeating group spinner color here. And underneath the repeating group spinner color, you will see expose the option to add an ID attribute to HTML elements. Right now that means nothing, but we just want you to know that that is here. It will become more important when you are working with HTML elements. In terms of API keys, the first one you want to see or note is that Google is here. So if you are using something like Google Maps, you need to put the API key in here for things to work. If you're enabling search for Algola, also here. And the last one is that Figma is down here too. So if you're using Figma and importing that information into Bubble, you're going to need to use your API key here. If you want to set a custom font, this is where you do it. In terms of how to do it, you read this post and follow the instructions. The last thing we will point out is your color palette. These are your default colors for your application. Bubble always starts with the same one, but then you can change them. The reason why it's really great to go ahead and change this is it makes designing much faster. If we go over into the design tab, I can see I put a button. If I scroll down into the property editor, I can see colors. If I select that color, you can see these are the default colors of my app. So if I change it over in settings, I am updating this section here. So it really speeds things up. And now you have a basic idea of what you can find in the settings tab. Congrats!